This is Mark Zuckerberg, and this is Tech Addicts.
This week, are Samsung throttling you? Lenovo have a bundle of exciting new devices at Mobile World Congress, as do TCL. There's a funky rugged phone, Ted finds some fun features in Chrome, and we rewind, but don't fade away. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts podcast, carrying on in our tradition of excellence. I am your host, Gareth, and this would be Mr. Ted Salmon. How are you, Mr. Ted Salmon?
The tagline being not experts, but just addicts. Yes, I'm all right, thank you. Ticking along. Nothing too much report. Looking forward to getting back to podcasting after our little gap of Projector Room and Tech Addicts. But yes, we've had some challenges, haven't we? So we're back at it now.
We have, yes. For those who don't know, I unfortunately had to take last weekend off as my father-in-law became exceptionally ill and ultimately passed away on Monday morning, which was quite sad. But, you know, over the last week, I've actually had a little bit of a chance to reflect on him, and I realised that he was pretty much a tech addict himself.
Yeah.
He really harnessed and grasped technology. He suffered from macular degeneration, but he always wanted to have a smartphone and a tablet and a laptop and a computer. And more recently, he really got into Google's home, Google Assistant and all that. And he decked his house out with Google Minis all throughout. And I remember talking to him quite recently, and where you expect like a pensioner, because he was 85 years old, he had seen his family gradually falling away and his friends falling away, so you kind of get lonelier and lonelier, but not him, no. He had Google Mini, so he would be more than happy just spending his day in the house battering Google with questions. And it was just, he'd just think of things and he'd ask it the question and it would tell him the answer and then send more to his tablet. And then he'd go ahead and try to read it on the tablet, and he would ask it more and more and more. And where things couldn't be fathomed, he would actually remember the question that he asked it. And then whenever he was talking to us, he would say, "Can you ask Google this? And then tell me what it means, or send me a link to whatever it brings up, because I can't quite get it." And it was such a weird way of doing things. But, you know, he had that, and he had YouTube Music, and he was just happy in his little house, battling about with Google, making things an awful lot easier for him. And I have to say, hats off to Google for being his companion in the lonely times, especially through COVID and isolation and all that, and lockdowns. It made it very bearable and comfortable for him. Yeah, I thought that was kind of nice.
A virtual companion.
Yeah.
Very sad indeed. And on top of that, after all that, we were heading towards recording, and then my dad fell over, who's also 85. He hasn't passed away, thankfully, but he fell over and ended up in casualty for like 10 hours or something. And they said that he got this very slight fracture in his hip, so he's now back and very needy and unable to do anything. So, you know, my time this week has been taken up with doing lots of stuff for him and Mum as well. So, yeah, it's been a bit of an odd week, hasn't it?
It has, yeah. How is Dad now?
Yeah, he's all right. He's using a Zimmer frame, but the biggest problem with him is stopping him doing things. Because yesterday I caught him going to the front door to go and pick something up from the doormat, and I said to him, "You just didn't need to do that. You're bending your hip over, which is fractured. If you really wanted that thing that had come through the letterbox, why didn't you just ask me or Mum to go and pick it up?" But he won't listen. He wants to go out to the garage. You can't go out to the garage. You can't even walk for goodness sake. But he's just frustrated because he's a man that is used to just doing things and not loafing around. He gets really bored really easily and sitting doing nothing, which I can understand. But no, he's all right generally.
Yeah, it's got to be really, really difficult. But it's that's one of the cruxes of getting older, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, it has been 2 weeks since we last spoke to you, which is mildly unfortunate. Mildly, I don't know where that came from, but I'm sure you just didn't miss us that much. So we'll carry on with the show and see what comes of it. And I do have something that I'm going to say now that, Ted, I did not prepare you for beforehand, because I do like to, throw a surprise at you, and I'm going to ask you to guess. Right. Because I purchased myself a new phone. My daily driver, my Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, has been set aside for a new device. And I'm going to ask you, given all our conversations over the last couple of weeks, what you think I now rock in my pocket.
If it's not an Oppo A54, which I saw you shouting about on Twitter, then I'm going to go for I think you were enthusiastic about a Pixel 6 Pro. You really wanted that. And as you maybe didn't need to get rid of your Samsung in the process. I'll go for a 6 Pro.
Okay, all right. For those who are just joining us, I was deliberating over the last couple of weeks as to whether or not to get a Samsung Galaxy S21 Plus or S22 Plus or Ultra. And the Pixel 6 was obviously causing a wee bit of a concern in my mind, because I quite wanted one of those, but all the reports said it was trash and it had problems and bugs and all that. Ted was trying to settle my mind by saying that he's had a good experience with it, but he was kind of pushing me toward the S22 range, because better the devil you know. Well, I went ahead and I hit the buy button on the Pixel 6 Pro.
I was right.
You were right. Well done, Ted.
Yay. And have you regretted it yet?
No, I haven't. I'm loving it. Primarily for a couple of reasons. The S8 and the S10 Plus have been my two main drivers for the last 5 years. I have a Samsung Galaxy S7 Plus tablet that I use every day. So I've kind of been overdone with Samsung's UIs and things like that for the last number of years. It's nice to have a bit of a change, to be honest. And I'm really enjoying what the Pixel 6 offers. There's a ton of cool features in there that yes, whenever you look at reviews and things like that, they do go into. But everyone's sort of going, wow, look at the feature of the S22 range. They're amazing. But there's far too many. And picking up the Pixel 6 Pro, there's a few little things that just instantly happen. Like my doorbell, my smart doorbell, I don't get notifications on the Pixel, on the Samsung anything. And I haven't since I got it. I don't know where there's a setting to turn on notifications for that thing. And because I'm not using it that often, it gets put to sleep and not updated and things. Whenever you go to use it, you have to update it and bring it out of hibernation or whatever. Whereas the Pixel 6, someone walks up and presses the doorbell, my phone rings, which is something I'm not used to.
Well,
yeah. And it's just little things like that I'm really enjoying at the moment. And also, given discounts, vouchers, promotional codes and things like that, I managed to get it all in for $690, which is the 128.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
Which I think, compared to if I was to go out and try and get the S22 Plus, the cheaper of the two, I think I probably would have been paying about £1,000 for that.
Wow.
And for the £300 of a difference, I don't really think it's justified for a bunch of features that, to be quite honest, with the previous Samsungs, I just haven't really used. There's been a few. But right now, and given it's been 2 weeks actually, because I was ready to spring this on you last week as well, right now I'm not actually noticing anything that I'm missing so far.
I think that be prepared that for 3 months' time though, for you to look at your phone and think, this is in a kind of iPhone type way. it works and it does everything, and it's just boring. It's not exciting. Whereas with Samsung, there's always something to play with. There's the I was looking at the stuff in Good Lock yesterday, which we'll come to in a minute, and there's just tons of stuff to play with. You can argue that it's littering the thing with stuff you don't need, and you've got to do things the Samsung way, and blah blah blah. But there's kind of stuff interesting going on, whereas the Pixel 6 Pro, and I've got one here, we've got a PR unit here which Steve has completely switched off from, is not interested in it at all. To be honest, it's sat here and I don't often turn it on, but maybe I should. Perhaps I should give it another go, particularly as you've now got one and we can compare notes on Tech Addicts. But that's the only fear, I think, is that you come from a system which is littered with features and opportunities to tinker and play about and all sorts of stuff you can do with Samsung system, to a stock Pixel Google that shallot, which has its benefits. I know, but you might get bored.
Yeah. Well, it has dazzled folks. Whenever we were driving home from school, my son said, "What's that song on the radio?" And I didn't know. I didn't have DAB turned on or DAB information turned on my car radio, but my Pixel was able to tell me that it was.
Love that. Now playing. That's a fabulous feature, and it's almost unique. There are workarounds with other systems to get it, but they're a bit of a kludge, and that's just fabulous. I love that. The only thing is, for me, is that it's huge. The phone is massive. Now, coming from a larger Samsung, it may not be such an impact for you, but don't you think it's just... I can't even get my finger and thumb round the waist of the phone. It's so big.
No, I can't either, but it's marginally bigger than the S10 Plus. And whenever I initially took it out of the box, I did think, holy crap. But then I remember thinking that about the S10 Plus when I took it out of the box, sitting beside the original S8, which was such a dinky little phone. I sometimes think about that phone and how just nice it was in the hand, because I have an iPhone SE for my work phone, and it's around about the same size as that S8 back then, and it's a nice little phone, and you see people using them in the movies, and it's just nice and pocketable, and you throw it away and forget about it. You can't imagine someone in a movie like in Die Hard 9, John McClane running around with a Pixel 6 Pro type thing sticking out of his pocket. That doesn't work. But that the screen is gorgeous, the refresh rate is lovely when it works, and when it works, whenever it's happening. And I'm having a great time with it. I will keep you up to date in the next 3 months as to whether or not I do get bored of it. But I don't think I will.
There's no DeX.
That's fine.
I've
got an S10 Plus, which I can hook up and use as DeX. Yeah. I've got an S7 Plus tablet that I can hook up with DeX, and I don't. The amount of features that are in those phones that I just don't use doesn't warrant me spending an extra 300 quid on buying the S22, whatever, and having a bunch of features that I'm just not using, when I think the core features are in the Pixel 6 Pro. And if I want any extra added features, it's quite easy to go into the Play Store and find something that works into Google's ecosystem as opposed to Samsung's ecosystem.
You won't find HDMI out. You see, these are the little things that that I look for, which probably other people don't. Is that I'm delighted to have a phone that I can put. I've got a cable permanently to my telly from my armchair, and so I can plug in whatever phone I've got for HDMI out, and it just plays, and there's no bandwidth being used and no data being used. But you see, life's different for you. So anyway, on the back of what you said, I will fire up the 6 Pro again this week, because it's mad that it sits here doing nothing, and give it another go. We'll compare notes.
One thing I do want you to compare, right, if possible right now, if it's near you, is if you pick it up and hold it in front of the microphone and jiggle it about. You heard that?
Does it shake?
I want to know if you hear that noise.
Do you want me to go and get it? It's not here.
Oh, right, okay.
I can quickly go and get it if you like. And
yeah,
we'll
sure.
do a live test. You talk to our listeners while I'm gone.
Okay. Well, on the back of what Ted said about the HDMI out, you can also do the casting, which I find works brilliantly natively with other Android TV devices, whereas the Samsung version didn't. I really have trouble casting to the TV from various Samsung things. You have to use third parties and stuff like that to be able to get your phone screen or tablet screen over to the TV.
Right.
So Google does that better.
Right, back now.
Okay.
Okay, so here we go. It's not turned on,
Yeah.
and I'll put it in front of the microphone and shake.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it rattles, doesn't it?
It does, and I think that's the camera, isn't it? Where it the correctional function in the camera, so that it smooths out the footage. Forgetting the name right off the top of my head.
I never noticed that, but then I haven't used it that much, so probably not surprising. So we're not worried about that then.
No, but this is a premium Google product, and you'd like to think that wouldn't happen. Come on, Google.
Have you looked?
What are you doing?
Have you looked it up?
No, I haven't. No.
My Pixel 6
Rats.
Pro rattles. I bet you're right. I bet it is that camera thing. Here we go. Yeah, rattling noise. Google support say that the 4x optical zoom has a voice coil motor to focus the camera quickly. If you shake the phone, it may move. Yeah. I didn't know that. Or if I did, I'd forgotten.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things that just pops up. Okay, well, we'll move into the news, and rather than start continuing babbling on about this kind of stuff, no, we won't move into the news. We'll go into the feedback and contribution stuff, because Adrian Brain has written in with something about vertical scrolling drawer app on Samsung. Ted, do you want to take this?
Yeah. I was quite enthused about this. One of the things that I've really hated about Samsung always is that you've got to get Nova on there to get a up and down app drawer. And Goodlock, those good people at Goodlock, which you have to install via the Galaxy Store, incidentally, they've added a module called Home Up. And if you open up Goodlock and install Home Up, you can then get the whole thing scrolling up and down instead of sideways, which, for most people that are used to Samsung probably won't care, but I do. And I think it makes a difference. The only thing is that there's an unmovable thing at the top of the screen which has got 6 of your recently used apps on it, and I can't find a way of moving that and getting rid of that. So that's a bit of a kludge. But apart from that, Adrian Brain, good shout, and that's made a difference for me anyway.
Yeah, that's essentially turns it into the drawer from the Pixel, because it does all that too.
Indeed.
Yeah. Right, okay. I did notice that, actually. I went to scroll left and right and was like, oh, flip, it's been that long since I've had a vertically scrolling thing. Or a drawer. Some phones that I've been reviewing recently don't have drawers. My wife doesn't like the drawer. She likes higgledy-piggledy scattered things all over the place.
The iPhone way.
Bedlam. Yes. All right, Chris Kelly has also written in, continuing with the Samsung theme. My free Galaxy Buds Pro arrived yesterday. I tested them and watching the WU Assassins on Netflix. I don't know what that is, but Ted, maybe you do. Via the Roku remote app on my Samsung Galaxy S22 Ultra. I thought the sound was a bit thin. Oh, right, okay. Interesting. Playing with the equaliser didn't make much of a difference. Then I remembered the S22U has Dolby Atmos. This made a huge difference. The sound was perfectly adequate. However, there are a few gaps in the dialogue. The volume of the background sounds was low. I felt like the Atmos system disabled itself, and they reverted back to their rather thin output. As soon as the dialogue restarted, the Atmos system kicked back in, and I realized the background raised the background volume and warmth. Moral of the story is, you don't get something for nothing, and and at the very least use Dolby. Yeah, okay. That's interesting to see whether or not that if that's an issue with the Samsung, or with maybe Wi-Fi as well, where it could go up and down and possibly can't get the Wi-Fi. What would it be?
Well, I think the thing is that I've had this with Samsung devices before, and turning on the Dolby makes a humongous difference. You turn this thing on, just like Chris has done, and you think, "What is that? All the sound you're getting? Is that the quality?" And then then you turn Dolby on, and suddenly it's transformed. You think, "Wow, this should just be on by default." The only trouble with Samsung devices, most of them anyway, is that you get a really basic version of Dolby Atmos. You don't get this super enhanced version, which you got on the Razer phone, and now you get on the Sony Xperia phones, which lets you play with it much more. But yeah, he's quite right. The difference on Samsung phones, I found too, is big. Put the Dolby on.
Yeah, I fully concur with that, but it still is kind of early days with these sorts of things, and it's not something that people use terribly often. I said a couple of weeks ago that I'd really done it for the first time in a long time, sitting up watching a movie quite late at night, and I stuck on my Soundcore Q35s with the noise cancelling on, and it was so immersive, and that was just using Bluetooth to the TV. And I have to say, it was fantastic. That sound coming through was amazing. Netflix's sound generally is very, very good. So I'm interested to see what happens to this in the future. So we'll keep an eye on this and keep testing. All right, so Hardline for the hardware, where we go straight into the hardware stuff that is of relevance today and tomorrow and yesterday and a couple of, maybe last week, maybe the week before, and will probably be relevant for the next week until the next show, in which case we'll get right to it straight away. Hardline for the hard... Samsung has fessed up about throttling, and we had mentioned this. I don't know if we mentioned it in the show, but I think I mentioned it to you, Ted, off air. And you went, "Oh no, that would be that's crazy to think they would do that." Can you imagine the fallout? But they fessed up to actually throttling their CPUs using their game optimizing service, and it's causing a little bit of an issue with the likes of, say, Geekbench, who have banned the last 4 years of Samsung flagships, the S10 series, the S20, the S21, and the S22, not the Note series or the A series, just the S10s and the S series. So yeah, it's become a bit of an issue, and Samsung have released a small statement to say that it's been designed to help game apps achieve the great performance while managing device temperature efficiency. GOS does not manage the performance of non-gaming apps, which I think people are taking issue with by saying that other apps are in fact throttled. Ted, what do you think?
I didn't know the last bit of what you just said there. I thought that the only ones that people were moaning about were the gaming ones. But yes, now the news is that they have issued already an update which changes this. One of the MeWe group members reported that they got a second update to their device, a second May update, which had been pushed to their device, and apparently that they've done this already. They fixed it and they changed it. The only problem is that they've done this for a reason, and if all their pre-delivery testing has been about preventing excessive heat during long gameplay, which is what they're saying, then presumably their fix has now turned that back on, and so people can expect excessive heat during long gameplay.
Right,
or
okay.
at the very least, knackered batteries quicker. I don't know. There's got to be a payoff, though, isn't there? And for them to push out a fix so quickly, you think, have they really done this properly? And and I don't know if the Geekbench thing are going to let them back in now or not, that the fix has been out there. I guess they might do.
Well, they did this to, was it the Oppo 9? I vaguely remember,
Right.
I read that somewhere, that the Oppo 9, Oppo 9 Pro had similar issues, and I think they're back in. So
Right.
I don't see why they wouldn't let Samsung back in, and because there's so many Samsung S series out there.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what actually happens going forward, and also if Samsung can actually put something out there to justify doing this on mass scale. People are going to dig deeper to find out whether it really is just gaming services that are being optimized there. No, not gaming services, but the gaming platform. And or is there more ambitious apps that are actually being throttled? But obviously they've done it for a particular reason. I'm hoping that safety is going to be the main reason, which is excusable. But I can't imagine what other reason they would do it for at all, other than perhaps doing it toward the end of the lifespan of a particular device in order to get you to upgrade, as Apple has done in the past. You know, if you were to put out that the S10 and S20 were throttled after 24 months of use, in order to try and get people to jump over to it. Because to be honest, using some of the S10s, using the S10 plus its camera a couple of weeks ago to try and take some pictures of my dog, I thought it was really crap. I was like, how did anyone ever say this was a fantastic camera? It's not doing well at all. I'm fiddling about with settings as well to try and get a better picture of it, and I can't. And the Oppo that I was using, which is a £200 phone, was taking vastly superior pictures, and I just can't help but think, with firmware updates and Android updates and stuff, that they could do an easy job of making your phone a wee bit crapper the older that it gets, to make you want to update.
Possibly. It's an outrageous allegation, but, but you heard it first on Tech Addicts.
Well, I think it's already been heard, because we know Apple have done it in order to preserve battery life.
Yeah,
but you know, that's an excuse. And then whenever they do it, and you need a new battery, they charge you for it.
Yeah, I can't remember the details fully about that, but yeah, these companies, who knows what goes on behind closed doors and what they decide to do and what they get caught out with. And Geekbench are obviously... I mean, Geekbench are not going to want to really ban the last 4 years of devices, because they'll want people accessing their service. Because they're cutting off their nose to spite their face, really, aren't they? Let's call it Throttlegate, shall we? It's another gate. It's Throttlegate. And as a result of that, Geekbench are just not going to have those people visiting their site and using their service, which they don't want. So, I don't know, it seems like a bit of a... On one hand, it seems like a bit of a storm in a teacup, but on the other hand, with the things you've just said, users should be looked after properly.
Yeah, and Geekbench is getting a good bit of press about this as well.
Yeah,
just having a quick look at Twitter there. Twitter. Gavin Fabiani Lemond has put a screenshot of the software update for his... I think he's got the S22 Ultra. I can't remember. But it's what's new. By performing the software update, your device will not limit CPU/GPU performance. Now, crucially there, it's a CPU performance as well, not just GPU, which you would imagine for gaming, but CPU performance. But I guess they're both utilised during that task as well. During early stages of gameplay, with an asterisk, maintain a performance management feature based on device temperature. Provide alternative game performance management mode and Game Booster. Allowed third-party apps to bypass game optimization service. Third-party apps, not games, apps. The stability of the camera has been improved. Overall stability, blah. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the big update. And Gav got that 45 minutes ago.
Yeah, somebody in the MeWe group got it last night. Gaz Morris. So a shout out to him too, because he's posted last night the same screenshot. So yeah, good stuff.
Well, I imagine Gavin's probably going to be reporting on this, so I'd pay attention to his Twitter for the next wee while to see how he does with it. Okay, so the one thing I've always associated with Samsung and Chromebooks is the Galaxy Book brand. I hadn't actually taken in that they do Windows variants as well, because the Galaxy Book 2 Pro 360, catchy title, is coming in two different flavors, with 13.3 inch version and 15.6 inch version, and it runs Windows 11. Ted, you're probably going to go, yeah, of course it runs Windows 11. What are you babbling about? But whenever I first saw this, I thought, oh wow, these are nice looking Chromebooks. And now I'm looking at the taskbar, I realise, yeah, it's Windows 11. Nice one, moron. I take it you're quite into these then. They are good looking 360 devices.
I'll tell you what I would like to see in these releases is. Do you remember that a few years back, the 360 was 360. You turn it round and it's back on itself. But these things are too fat to be considered a tablet in their own right, I think. So. Yeah. When you fold it back on yourself, it's being pushed as a tablet experience, but it's not, because for one thing, the back doesn't close back on itself properly, like the Microsoft Duo does, the first one, and like my Pixelbook does. They actually close back on themselves, and it feels like it's a thin tablet to be used in tablet form. This has got a rounded back. There's no way it's going to feel like a closed tablet. So my point that I was coming to was that we went through a phase where they not only folded back on themselves, but you could turn them round. So the keyboard went on the inside, and it got out of the way, because when you're using these things in tablet form, I don't know about you, but it just feels crap that underneath your hands you've got the keyboard. Now, okay, it intelligently turns the keyboard off and the trackpad doesn't work and it doesn't actually do anything, but it's just rubbish, isn't it? What we want is those 360 hinges, turn the whole thing round once and again, get rid of the keyboard, turn and keep it really, really thin and turn it into a proper tablet.
You're talking about where it sort of like has a neck that sticks down into the keyboard, and you turn the keyboard horizontally and then up vertically behind the screen. You
just turn it round. You turn the screen round, and then you turn the keyboard round, so the keyboard faces the back of the computer. And it just, your hands are then not all over the back of it. And they did this. I can't remember who was doing it. Somebody was doing this a few years ago, if it was Acer or Asus or someone. And it was a thing. And they got that keyboard turned round. And now you don't seem to see it anymore. It's all just 360. And people have got this keyboard on their knee or under their hands. I think that's a bit rubbish. But yes, you're right. They look, apart from that complaint, they look really nice. The keyboards look lovely. They look very Apple, don't they? And the trackpad looks huge, which is great. It looks lovely. Working with the S Pen, of course. Who's not to like? Well, have we got some pricing on this?
No, well, I was just thinking there that there is an image of it where the person has their Samsung phone, there's the S Pen sitting on the desk, and there's a purple rendition of this in like display mode for the user.
Yeah.
But I do, as you say, I remember there being a version or some laptop somewhere where you could be sitting opposite your employer or whatever, and you would be able to turn the screen in that position 180 degrees round so that they could see it as well, and then turn it back to yourself. So you could maybe, if you're doing a graphical presentation, you could change something, then turn it around and say, what about that?
Yeah.
And they go, oh yes, I like that, and you turn back and carry on or whatever. That's a great thing, rather than turning the whole unit round, basically on the keys, which could cause a little bit of damage. And scuff up your trackpad and things like that. But I suppose you can't have every option that way. Maybe there's the amount of wiring and things like that has to go down through one little area in order for it to turn. Well, it's got the turning mechanism, but it also has to have connections going through to the battery and to the keyboard and all the wires and stuff, and maybe some storage and USB parts and things. So perhaps that's a lot to ask.
Maybe maybe the panels were not stable enough. Perhaps they had too many returns because because the edge, you've got four corners that are not so well supported as two. If you see what I mean, I don't know, but they just seem to have kind of ebbed away. That whole design.
Yeah. I suppose it's got to have gone for a reason. It sounds too attractive an idea for them to have not to have done away with on a whim. But one thing I do like about this is that whenever you turn it into 180 and you lay it out flat on the desk, it lies flat on the desk.
Right.
If I try to do that with mine, my keyboard sits up a bit because the way the hinges work on that, it doesn't actually... they stay at a 90-degree angle with the keyboard until you push it past 180 degrees.
Oh, right, okay.
So, I can't lay it fully flat on the desk like they have here, which would be quite nice. But I suppose that's one of the features of having the S Pen as well.
Yeah, again, I go back to the Pixel Book, which was just amazingly designed. The Pixel Book is just a stunning piece of hardware, and you can lay it completely flat there as well on the table. The only thing that doesn't do is swivel in the way that we were just describing. It looks like we're talking about $1,200 here for the 256 gigabyte, 8 gigabyte version with the i7, and the lesser versions are about $1,000 or so, depending on what specifications you want.
Yeah.
But they look lovely, absolutely lovely, and I'm sure that they work beautifully. And if you're into the Samsung stuff, which you're not now, of course.
No, I still have a wealth of Samsung products that I'm using. Just because I swap one out doesn't mean that I've thrown the lot in the bin and I'm walking away going, good riddance to bad rubbish.
Away, Samsung. Anyway, yes, they look nice.
All right, well, you seem to be totally in love with Lenovo this time of the year because the next three topics are about Lenovo. Lenovo has the Tab M10 Plus, which is a budget tablet that, holy crap, am I reading this right? Has promised 3 years of security updates.
Yes.
It's not been abandoned as soon as it's put in the box.
But hang on a minute, because that's security updates, okay?
Yeah.
Now, they haven't even said... It's going to arrive with Android 12 out of the box, right? And they have suggested that it will get Android 13, but they haven't committed to Android 13. They're hoping that it will be... They're expecting it to be ready for 2023 with 13. But they're not saying that. What they're promising is 3 years of security updates, if you believe them. But apart from that, it looks like a lovely tablet, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely, yeah. And a whisper of an update from Lenovo is, it's a bit like a drug addict turning around saying, I'm entertaining the idea of going into rehab. It's not bad.
Right, Snapdragon 680. I'm not sure if I've seen that before anywhere. Anyway, the emphasis here is on connectivity as well. So that they put an LTE variant in, of course. 128 gigs of storage, quad speakers with Dolby Atmos, excellent, and a 3 or 4 gigs of RAM, which is not quite so good, but they are kind of keeping the price down here, which I'll come to in a second. USB-C, 3.5mm audio, 7,700 milliamp hour battery, micro SD card slot, fast charging support, and yeah, they're talking about $190.
Wow.
Which actually is, if you take that into account, from all the aforementioned, they're getting really aggressive with their pricing here. Lenovo they really want to be part of this Android tablet thing that they see coming, and I think that for that's less money than the Nokia one, which I've got and your son's got, and this is so much more tablet than that is. So good luck to them, I say, and fingers crossed for the updates.
Absolutely. That wee cover as well that houses the pen looks pretty good too. It's a nice design. Quite Samsung-y, I will say, but I wouldn't object to this at all.
And the pen is an extra, but it does... we'll come to styluses a bit later, but you need to buy that. I don't see a price for that, but it doesn't come with it.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of things, where you know that you are going to get updated, but thanks to Google as opposed to thanks to anything that Lenovo are suggesting, they have debuted the 11-inch IdeaPad Duet 3 with some nice slim bezels. I take it this picture isn't of it because it's got rather fat bezels, and a $400 price tag, and it carries on that very, very popular duet design that they put on with the two-tone grey on the back. This is gorgeous looking, I have to say. Well done, Lenovo. This looks really nice. Ted, you've often decided that you're going to look for one of these on a good deal. Is this another one that's going to go onto your list of things that you're not going to buy but going to talk about each week?
It's an interesting upgrade to the original, and I'll also link to Chrome Unboxed video, or ask you to in the show notes, because there's an interesting in-depth kind of first look at it there as well, which is really good. This is a good update, I think. They made the screen a bit bigger than the original, which is 11 inches now instead of 10.1, but they've retained that wide ratio, which I think is... I know it's 5:3. I thought it was 16:9, but it's not. It's 5:3, whatever that is.
Really?
Yeah, really odd, isn't it? But anyway, the screen looks really good. They've got one of the big differences over the original, though, is that they've upped the available specs and storage. So the previous one you could only get on a 128 4 gig of RAM. This one you can get on a 256 gig with 8 gigs of RAM. So they're making that bigger and better, better speakers, and a bit thinner. So only 7.9 millimeters thick if you remove it from the keyboard, of course. 2 USB-C ports, which is different again, because the first one only had one. Kickstand is coming in the box. It works with the stylus, but again, this is an additional purchase with no idea how much it costs. And yeah, you're right, $399. So hopefully that might be about 350 quid here, which makes it an interesting option if you're into a tablet which can turn itself into a kind of laptop. The trouble with these devices is that it's not a firm keyboard. If you try and put it on your lap, it just becomes a bit difficult, I think. You want a table to put it on or something. And that's one of the physical flaws of this whole idea, and that's what makes me a bit unsure about it. But it's a nice upgrade, I think.
It is, yeah. I watched Chrome Unboxed video this morning, and it was Robbie that did it. He said about how the back panel was wafer thin. You know, it was like only a couple of sheets of paper.
Yeah.
And where they've sort of made the loss there in the width of it, they've kind of pushed that into the keyboard to give the keyboard added rigidity. So it's actually a lot more rigid for you to use, and it feels really good under the hand. And I think that was a really sensible choice for them. And whenever he picks it up all folded up, it looks like a really nice device to have to take with you. It's no larger than maybe a notebook that you might take into a meeting or something like that, but have a massive amount more potential. To
definitely
assist you during your day.
Absolutely, it looks really nice. There's no mention of battery that I can see.
It probably has one.
Yes, and it's got the Snapdragon 7C second generation. So that's, I think it looks nice, and I would like one, because the Duet 5, which is also gorgeous, is just huge, and that it lends itself to being a desktop. This is a kind of in-between one, really. Nice.
Yeah. No, I don't see any listing for a battery at all there. It's even on some of the related topics. But it weighs about 700 grams, or 1.5 pounds, which is a bit heavier than an iPad Pro, and a bit lighter than a small dog.
Yes, those types of things.
Yes. So the third one here for your hat trick of Lenovo nonsense is Lenovo has unveiled a super slim 5G ThinkPad which has 28 hours of battery life. Wow, this is a work from home beast. Ted, the ThinkPad brand, carrying on, and they're putting in a big battery like that. I take it. Well, this isn't one we're going to own, but you quite fancy one of these?
This is the reason I put this in is that it looks really robust, and the build quality looks just superb. It's also got a Snapdragon chipset, which in a Windows computer is coming along, and they've put 32 gigs of RAM in this and 1 terabyte of storage. And it's just a beast. If you look at the build quality now, look at the trackpad and the buttons and the left and right trackpad buttons, which are quite old-fashioned now to have them outside of the trackpad. But they look as though they're military grade. In fact, they are. It's military standard 810H, which means it's just people can throw this thing around like my Nokia phone. and it's 13.3 inches, which is neat. 16:10 aspect ratio, LCD screen, not particularly bright by the specs here, only 300 nits, but yeah, the whole thing looks just really, really solid. And with the Snapdragon processor, the focus is actually to what they've said is that they want to try and make the laptop more like a mobile, and because of this, they've put Wi-Fi 6 in it, but also they put Wave and 5G and all the rest of it into it. So it's
6E as well.
Yeah. And it also they're trying to say, look, like a phone, you can take this with you and it'll work anywhere. All you need to do is put a SIM card in it or use an eSIM, I guess. And but it's still got the basics like. The like I say, the solid build. The keyboard looks lovely. Scrolling down this page we're linking to, that keyboard just looks absolutely stunning and gorgeous. So yeah, I would be all over this. I've no idea how much it's going to cost. Probably a lot. Oh, hang on a minute. Here we go. Starting at $1,000. Yeah. So yeah, and no, presumably that's not going to be the i7 version, but. So it might be quite expensive, but yeah, I like the look of that. Do you?
I do, yeah, and I think there's a certain collection of people out there who are probably going to push for this, because not only does it have the trackpad, but it also has two physical buttons, and it has the, I forgot what you call them, the nubbin between the G, H, and
the
B.
nipple.
Yeah, which broke so many laptop screens over the years. But yeah, you can go and use the pointer thing, the mouse pointer jobby thing, and what was it called?
It looks old-fashioned, doesn't it? Like I was saying just now, having not having the trackpad being clicky. Maybe that's part to do with the military specification that making the buttons for the mouse separate, it makes it firmer, or I don't know, but that nipple thingy, the red nipple in the middle of the keyboard, that's like from 15 years ago, isn't it?
Well, it's always been synonymous with the ThinkPad, because the I in ThinkPad has a red dot on it, which is symbolic of what to expect when you open this and find the treasure of the. I was hoping that it would just suddenly pop into my head and I was able to say it there, but whatever that thing was called. Actually, looking at my HP work laptop that I have, it's got one as well, but it's black.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever used it or noticed that it's there.
Is it old?
My HP?
Yeah.
No, it's a ProBook i5 8th gen, so it's probably a few years old, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe perhaps people are still doing that. I hadn't noticed really.
No. It must be a demand for the people who are off working and on the road and stuff like that. It must just be that bit more useful whenever they're trying to order things off Amazon.
What do you use it for? If you've got a trackpad,
work laptop?
No. The red nipple. If you've got a trackpad there anyway, surely, I don't know, it's like a cursor control thingy, isn't it?
Yeah, it must just be a personal preference, where they've retained it because there are some employees who can't adapt to the trackpad. In all walks of life, there's different people in workplaces. I knew a lady who was left-handed but insisted on using a right-handed mouse upside down. Not upside down, but pointed the other way round. And
wow.
she held it with her fingers pointing down into her hand and pressed it with her sort of upper knuckles under her fingernails.
Yes, great.
And I know it beggars belief that there are. It was her way of doing it. I'm not going to say that she was a bit of a weirdo or anything, but she's the only person I've ever met doing that. So it's suffice to say, given the basic meaning of the word bizarre, weird, or not altogether, that she might enter into that, and she'd probably admit to that as well.
I think the red nipple thingies originally.
I don't know if she has red nipples.
No,
I'm not going to ask her.
I think that red nipple thingy originally it was on your keyboard, but you didn't have a trackpad. That was instead of a trackpad. And Lenovo in the ThinkPad thingy, they seem to have just retained both options, don't they? I don't know. Odd.
It might have been when I opened up an old laptop. Actually, I think Alan mentioned it to you. He asked at the start of the pandemic if he could have, an old laptop with Age of Empires on it to help him with his boredom. So I put Age of Empires and Age of Empires 2 onto this one laptop that was running Windows 95. And when I opened it and went to use it, the touchpad on it was maybe about, I don't know, an inch by an inch, maybe slightly more, but it had that nipple thing as well.
Right.
And you couldn't use that touchpad. It was the size of a large stamp.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah.
So it must have been back in those days whenever that was just not happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an idea. So they needed something else to fall back on.
Mm.
Yeah. Or perhaps there's software actually that isn't compatible with the touchpad, but is only compatible with that in certain enterprise zones.
Yeah, maybe so.
Anyway, moving on to other archaic technology, and this isn't the harkback section. We'll find out what that pointer thing was called and do it in the harkback one day. Apple II has a new patent for a desktop keyboard hybrid that is pretty much your computer, and you take it with you and you can plug it into output devices, whether that be a screen that's provided for you in the workplace. But they're sort of harking this back to the likes of the original Apple II, if anyone remembers that computer that came out in 79, I'm going to suggest. 78 perhaps, which was the full keyboard, and you attached a screen to it. All of the gubbins of the computer were inside it. I did see this on another website to the one that we're linking to, and they suggested that Apple was the first ones to do this, for which they were poo-pooed almost immediately by saying no. Xerox did it with the Alto. So Apple can't say, we did this first. We made the first self-contained computer that you could plug into anything. Xerox did it first. So it's a nice idea. It harks back to that. Ted, would you be interested in just having a computer that is a keyboard?
I might if it wasn't Apple, because if it was a Windows computer, it would be quite good fun, wouldn't it? But it's got to be a whole retro thing, hasn't it? And if you look at the device that they're looking at, it looks like it's also got an old style clackety clack keyboard. And not anything modern. The whole kind of computer in the keyboard thingy, I suppose, is the opposite of the iMac, isn't it? They moved on to the iMac, and the iMac has been hugely successful, putting everything inside the back of the computer. So, and I had an iMac once, which now Steve's got, and it was great. It was super to have all that inside. But this feels like it's just like retro fun to me. Don't you think so? Rather than anything serious. Is anyone going to take this seriously? If you want to carry... You see, this is what the whole DeX thing was about. It's like if you're going to carry a computer with you, then it can be in your phone now. You don't need a great big lump of a thing like this. Well, unless you're going to be using serious Apple Mac programs, I suppose. But I don't know.
Well, yeah, I suppose the phone is a bit more of an intermediary between the keyboard, mouse, and a screen. So it is essentially a bit like a desktop or a bit like a laptop. You can't fully utilize it by plugging it in. You can't take it with you, go to work, and plug it into the screen and just be done with it. You need to then attach keyboard and mouse somehow, which maybe Bluetooth or whatever that works that way. So it's not a fully operational computer. It's not like, say, the Sinclair Spectrum, where you just plug that in and away you go, or the Amstrad or the Commodore VIC-20 and 64, which possessed all of the brains of the operation inside it and just hook it up to whatever screen was required. Not in the case of the Amstrad, because the power supply was in the screen, so that doesn't quite work, and you couldn't just hook it up quite easily. You needed to have a modulator to be able to hook it up to the TV. But yes, I digress. These are, I think it is a sensible solution, and workplaces might be quite happy with this. It can be locked down to the workplace. You can just put it in your bag, go home and plug it into a screen at home and have access to everything. It kind of is... and
power.
And power, yeah. And
you'd have to plug it into power, and you'd have to plug a mouse in somehow.
Well, I think Apple's Air Mouse anyway would probably work out. Or they could stick a red nipple in the middle of it, which isn't in the patent, but we're ahead of them. Let's do that. Stick that in as a patent and call it a banana.
Yes, indeed. A bit like the what's the Raspberry Pi thingy that where everything's in the keyboard. One of the
the 4000.
Yeah. I mean that looks kind of an idea down the same route.
Or 400, yeah. Oh no, there's a load of them there. Yeah. There are quite a lot of computers coming out at the moment. Spectrum did one quite recently, not quite Sinclair themselves, but there was the Spectrum Next, which was a full computer in the keyboard, and it had micro SD and all those sorts of things built into it, so you could just plug it in and away you go. All you needed was an HDMI out and a USB Type-C to charge it.
Pretty nice.
Not charge it, power it. Yes. Another thing that is quite nice is what TCL showed off at Mobile World Congress this year. Most of this is coming from Mobile World Congress because it was last week, wasn't it?
The week before.
Week before?
Yeah.
Okay, 3 blue monkeys. There are 10 new tablets that they showed off. There's the TCL 10 range and then the TCL 30 series
10
as well.
tablets?
I think so. From what I can count, there's 5 TCL 30s, and then I think there was maybe there wasn't 5 TCL or TCL Tab 10s. The 10S, which is a 5G slate with a 10-inch screen. And there's the 10S 5G. Okay, there's maybe it's just the 10S. Oh no, there's the Tab 10 FHD and the Tab 10 HD. Which were 2 cheaper devices running on Media Tech and running Android 11 Go.
Ooh.
So, Boo, Ted's favourite operating system.
11. Well, Go is just like it says what it's all about. Really, I've got an Android 10 Go phone here, and it's just useless. It's so useless. It's not worth having. And I think that whole Go thing is going to go away at some point soon. But they're flogging this on the back of the price, aren't they? It's apparently the cheapest 5G tablet you can get, Android tablet that is, and it's going to appeal price wise, isn't it? What is the price?
It's €200 at the moment.
Yeah, €200.
Slightly. It's about £180 or so, I think.
Is that the one with the Go software on it, or the proper software?
That's the Go.
That's the Go. So the one with the proper software on is more money, presumably.
I'd like to think so.
€349. Oh, and there's another one for $49. Oh no, that's the Lenovo. Yeah, I don't know. I can't raise much enthusiasm about this, I'm afraid.
No, I think it's an important step that a lot of these manufacturers are making, because things are getting tighter in households, and it is essentially a race to the bottom to try and get the best tablet out for the best value for money, because people aren't going to have the amount of money that they used to have to be able to go out and buy themselves the latest and greatest flagships. Obviously, Samsung are doing well with their sales of the S22s and the S8s, we would believe. I don't think there are figures yet, but given that they're selling out, you'd like to think that they are quite high or meeting expectation. If they've sold out, then they must have met expectation and then some. So perhaps that's a bit of a bubble before everyone's bills just get a bit too high that they have to, if they need a new tablet, they're not going to be looking at the most expensive thing on the range. So the likes of these things will actually really do well.
And the price is reflecting the 64 gigabyte storage as well. So that's it. A bit like the Nokia tablet. That's your lot. There's no bigger storage. Okay, you've got a micro SD card slot, but 64 gigabytes is just not enough, I don't think. But yeah, it might be for many people. So
yeah.
Well,
long may it continue. I loved the days whenever we did have a lot of budget Android tablets, and you'd open the Argos catalogue and see all these names that you recognise from when you were growing up, like Grundig,
Alcatel.
they're doing. Yes, yeah, and they're people just buy up any old name that they can get a hold of to be able to sell a tablet under that. Whenever Bush was buying Argos tablets so that they can get something in the Argos catalogue for Christmas. Yeah.
They've got really aggressive with their phones as well. The TCL 30 series. If you look at the pricing on those, right, this is like Nokia territory or low end Motorola, with 139 euros with the TCL 30E, and even the most expensive one with 5G is 249 euros. So you're right. They're really pitching in there to try and get the lowest price point with the most reasonable output, and not care that users, or rather hope that users don't care that they've got Helio G series chipsets in them, or at the best the Dimensity one, the 700 in this case.
Yeah, as long as the security updates keep coming for them, then I think people can't really tread wrong at the moment. There's good options out there. Just do a little bit of research to see whether or not it's really worth your while. Okay, so over on Kickstarter there is the J20 Rugged Android 5G or Android 11 5G smartphone. This is a pretty interesting looking device, I have to say, where you can go and pay some money. There is a Kickstarter exclusive variant called the Pro, but this is an IP68 rated device, and the Pro, I think, is IP69K, which means it's for extreme temperatures and things.
Before you go on, Gareth, I'd just like to say that I put this in the show notes for discussion because I thought the price was 270 quid. But on further investigation now, that's 55% off the retail price, which makes it hugely less attractive, because that makes it more like about £500 plus. And I mean, do carry on with your commentary, but I was bowled over because it was 270 quid, but it's not. That's the price if you back it on Kickstarter.
Yeah, no, I quite like it actually. I'm always quite fascinated by these sort of indestructible phones, and generally they usually come with not a particularly good level of specs inside. You know, they're sort of working specs that you can use on the job. But this one has a good bit more inside it that made me think, actually, this is a viable option for whenever my wife goes to Tesco, so she doesn't destroy her phone. Because it weighs 300 grams. It's got a 6.3-inch Full HD Plus display. It's got the MTK Dimensity 700 inside, 8 gigabytes of RAM. If you go for the Pro, you get 512 gigabytes of storage, but standard is 256 gigabytes of storage, 6,000 milliamp hour battery, and 5G. It all looks really quite nice. There's a Samsung optics inside with a Sony meter and things, and it can do temperatures minus 30 up to plus 70. So I do actually quite like it. I hope that these sorts of devices sell well, because the more we have, the more likely it is that it'll push indestructible phones into consumer phones, or at least some of the technologies that are developing for these can become more easy to come by for regular consumers.
HD plus screen. I get confused with these things. Does that mean it's 720p, or is it... it's not 1080, is it? Because that's full HD or something. I get lost for these things. My point was, though, whatever the resolution of this HD Plus is on this phone, I was going to tell you that last week I decided to try my Samsung Galaxy S10 on 720p instead of the 1080 it's always sat on, and I just could not tell the difference. I honestly couldn't tell the difference. All right, it's not a very big phone, but I thought to myself, 720p is just fine. Okay, all right, if you've got a whacking great big screen, you might be able to start telling the difference. Or if you've got eyes that are 15 years old and not 60 years old, then maybe you can tell the difference. I don't know, have you tried doing that and seeing what it looks like?
Yeah.
You can tell, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I couldn't. We're not on the size of that screen.
You're
anyway.
constantly rubbing your eyes, going, "Have I just got out of bed or something like that? What's going on here? This is awful."
Well, my eyes must be knackered then. You'll be telling me next you can tell the difference between refresh rates as well.
Well, yeah. Whenever you put the S10 Plus, which I think does 48 frames per second, and the Pixel 6 Pro side by side, you can see the difference when you're scrolling.
I can't.
But then, PC gaming and things like that, you can certainly tell the difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second. So, it does all add in. So you kind of know what to look for and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I suppose.
Yeah. Anyway, this thing...
You are turning into my mum, by the way, who sits there watching BBC One SD and goes, if I change this over to HD, I don't see a bit of difference. And then you change it over. It looks fantastic. And Mum's going, no, I can still tell you that's Julian Simmons.
I can tell the difference, because I do the same thing with my mum and dad, and I can't believe they can't see the difference. But I can.
Well, there you go.
I can on the telly, but I could not see it on this phone. But anyway, that's just me, and that's my eyes, and it saves me battery, so I don't care. And Yabu sucks to everyone else. But this looks really solid. It reminds me of like an even further beefed up version of the XR20 Nokia, which looks fantastic. Or it reminds me of the Cat phones. Did you ever have Cat phone?
No, but I watched them be developed. Yeah, not be developed. I wasn't in the factory whenever they were developing them. I've seen them over the years. And yeah, this does seem to be that kind of device. Yeah. So long may it continue.
Yeah, solid.
Solid. Right. Speaking of other things that are solid, Ted, and things that you actually like, what's this camera? The Ricoh?
Oh, the Ricoh GR3X is a new variation called the Urban Limited Edition, and there's no news here really. I shouldn't have put this in. The only difference is it comes in a special edition kit, and it's got a nice blue ring on the front, and you get a leather strap with it, and they've added some exposure modes to the setup, which are going to be upgradable to the original version anyway, through a firmware update. So there's nothing really going on here that's very interesting. But what it did remind me of was of the fact that how lovely this camera was, because I had one for a while and then I sold it, because as usual with cameras I never use them, and it really is a gorgeous little camera, ridiculously priced at like about £1,000 now, or at least 800 quid, but features galore. The only downside of it is that, unlike other dinky cameras that have got control buttons all over the place, almost everything with this one is buried in menus. And that's one of the reasons I sold it on, because I wanted to have buttons everywhere, because I'm a nerdy geek, that's what I like. And when you compare it with, for example, the Fuji film cameras, the X100F, for example, they're just a nerdy dream, and this wasn't. But this is really dinky. It's got a fixed focus lens. It's expensive. And I know that in one of our MeWe groups, there is some real enthusiasm about this model, even though it's really expensive, because the optics are superb. That was it, really.
Okay, yeah. No, it's great that compact cameras are obviously still happening, still a thing. People are still developing them. You've got your mobile phone, and then you've got your SLR. You don't imagine that there's too much activity in between, but there is.
Yeah.
And this looks good. It's expensive, but it looks good.
It certainly does.
Cool. All right, into Flap Your Trap about an app. Straight up, just thought I'd mention that Google has released their Google One, or VPN by Google One, on iOS. I think that's very much worth considering, just to give yourselves that little bit of extra protection when you're using Wi-Fi's out in the wild world out there. That can help you just keep a wee bit safer. Ted, do you use your Google One VPN at all?
I didn't know I had it. I thought it was America only.
No, it's here.
Is it? I don't use it, no. Do you think I should? But then I don't...
Anytime you're connecting to a public Wi-Fi.
You see, I don't do that. I never go to public Wi-Fis. Do I look like the sort of bloke that hangs out in airports? No.
Well, you were in the hospital recently. You could have used it then.
I do get the idea of it, but for me personally, I probably don't see the need. And I honestly didn't know. I thought it was America only. So now you told me. When I fire up the 6 Pro, I'll have a look at it and see what's what.
And also you can use it to access other streaming services and things like that in other areas of the world. You can use it to pay for things a wee bit cheaper. You know, if you connect to, say, Turkey or India and pay for a variant of something, it can go through there and work out pennies.
I should look into it, because I have never really looked into it. I thought it was something that other people did.
No, it's useful. I don't use it terribly often, mind you, but it is a handy thing to have out and I would recommend, if you're making purchases even, especially over public Wi-Fi, you should be using something like this. Maybe not this one. There are other ones available, but now it's available on iOS, so it's a much larger catchment of customers for Google to catch and cust.
Yes.
Right, yes. Google is killing off Snapshot.
You never even knew it was there, did you?
I did know it was there. I just forgot about it. That was about a year ago that someone actually last mentioned it. Right, okay. Should we have a service or something? Or
I kind of did use it to a degree. When I had a Pixel, when I was using a Pixel, I did use it. I had a look at what was going on there. But with the Google Now thingy, the left hand of home screen, you latterly had to tap on the snapshot button anyway to go and see it and use it. Unlike what I've noticed with the Microsoft Duo, for example, whereby their panel is to the left anyway. You don't get the Google feed. You use their panel. The same is true if you use the Samsung thingy, which is called, I can't remember now, but if you turn that Samsung thingy on, you get your summary, you get your daily stuff that's going on. And this snapshot thingy, obviously, I think that the reason that it's failed is because they buried it under a bloomin' button. They insisted on having their global general feed to the left of the homepage. If they'd put the snapshot as up front and centre on that left page, it would have been fine. It would have worked, and it would have been, people would have used it, and they would have known what it was instead of saying snapshot. What's that? So anyway, Google are saying that it's not going away. They're going to be making it available through the assistant, so you can still ask for the information. Well, of course you can. You can get the information by going into all your apps and looking for it. But you know, I didn't use it hugely, but I think I'm probably one of the people that did use it more than most.
Well, are they not just going to stick it into the widget at a glance? You know, that'd be a sensible place for it, because it tells you the weather and things like that, and they could just put your snapshotty type stuff in there.
It kind of does that anyway, doesn't it? At a glance, but this goes further. This does, you know, suggestion. Like if you've got, for example, if you've got a bill to pay coming up and it's in an email, and you know, at a glance doesn't give you that, whereas Snapshot did. So that's just one example, or sports scores or whatever, you know, for those that are mad on sports for some reason.
Not just into sports, but mad on sports.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a bit of a Microsoft warning. And actually, this kind of factors into a film that I noticed was coming out fairly soon. I saw the trailer for it a while ago, but I can't remember what it was called, and that would have been useful information.
Very helpful.
Actually, I do. I do, because I think I put it in the show notes of the projector room at one stage. It might be called Exploited. Ted, I think that might ring a bell with you.
Yeah, it does.
So this is about some files which may not be deleted when you reset a Windows PC. The idea here is maybe, say, in a university or school or in a workplace, where you have a Windows PC, things could be synchronized to OneDrive. And then when the PC is sort of formatted and reissued to someone else, the admins may not actually reset the OneDrive cloud file service thing, and it could resync them back down to the machine. So things that you have saved up in the cloud reappear on a new user's PC, which could cause much embarrassment, especially if you've got pictures of maybe a verruca or you know, you were researching religious artifacts and things like that. They could download, and you could end up being exposed in work or in school because of the machine you had last year that you don't have this year. And indeed, that I think that film that I was talking about, there's something about how he gets a new laptop through his school and he becomes obsessed with the content that was left on it by the previous user somehow, and she's some kind of, I don't know if she's an OnlyFans type lady or doing some sort of web broadcasting, but yeah, it turns into something quite sinister that way. Obviously, a Hollywood movie style thing. But this sounds like a big mistake. And I'm not going to say by the system admins at all, but by Microsoft that this kind of thing could actually happen. Ted, what do you think?
Does it affect ordinary people like me, or do you have to be inside a organisation for it to have happened? And that you've got to have an administrator, or does the fact that I'm the administrator of my computer and I use OneDrive mean it's me as well?
I don't exactly know. I didn't read through the full article. I just got the basic gist of what it was going on about. Because I think your OneDrive is more synchronized to your particular user ID with Microsoft, or Live, or 365, or whatever. So if you were to open up another computer, it would go, you've got this stuff on OneDrive, here you go. Whereas in the enterprise side of things, it may be more sort of locked down to the computer and giving people access to certain functions for which the user themselves may have turned on OneDrive and saved stuff to it outside of the system admin's knowledge, perhaps. There's a lot of things that could have happened here. I suppose doing research and things like that and finding out what actually they were talking about would help when discussing things. But the fact that there is a concern here really, highlights that. I imagine for Microsoft, it's got to be really difficult to make sure that everything, every hole in the canopy is covered so that water doesn't seep through.
They're just trying to be too clever, aren't they, with all this cloud stuff? It's come back to bite them in the arse. And, trying to make it all so super duper clever and smart. Yeah. And things like this are bound to happen, I think. And you could argue that Microsoft should have seen this coming, known what they're doing, and not let it happen. But stuff was bound to happen like this, and they'll fix it. They'll fix it quickly. I suppose there'll be some fallout in the process. Some people will be affected by it, and no doubt Microsoft will get sued by various organisations, and that's the way the world is.
Yeah, true, and there'll be public ridicule and of people who have selfies up there and things, and nudes. That's all we care about is nudes, and we'll get back to that later. Microsoft could finally be bringing actual tabs to their File Explorer, which is almost welcome if File Explorer was any good, because to be honest, it's a bloaty mess that likes to collapse and fall over whenever you demand too much of it, I find. But yes, throwing tabs in means you can try and do more in this bloaty mess. Ted, would you be excited about this at all?
I don't find Explorer a bloaty mess, unlike you. I actually find it very functional and it works fine. But then maybe I don't push it in the ways that you do. And I think that tabs is a great idea. It's a super idea, and I don't know why it wasn't there already, to be honest. Being able to kind of move stuff between tabs, it's just logical, isn't it? And this is only incidentally available via the developer channel at the moment, so it's nowhere near being released to us mere mortals. But presumably, in the months to come, when they've ironed out any bugs or realised that someone doesn't lose their data by closing down their computer and OneDrive, then we'll actually get to use it, and I will use it because I do use Explorer. You can just shrug.
Well, no, I do think this is a sensible idea and much needed. I quite frequently get a bit frustrated at File Explorer, mainly because of its instability. But say, for example, you're copying 18 gigabytes worth of stuff onto an external hard drive, and you've got your File Explorer open down the bottom, and you suddenly go, oh, did I have this? And you go to look for it, and you click on your File Explorer, and it brings you the copy window to the front. And you're like, no, I want File Explorer. I don't want to see the copy window that File Explorer has now become. I want to see the copy window or the File Explorer so that I can start doing something else in File Explorer. Instead, you have to right click and go up and new window or something like that you have to do. Or you have to open File Explorer again, and then you've got two File Explorers, one with copy, and then whenever it's finished, it goes back to being File Explorer again, and then you've got two copies of File Explorer open, which seems redundant.
My copy window closes itself down when it's finished.
Maybe. I can't remember quite what happens afterward, but I just knew that that's one thing that I've had to go and do multiple times when I've been copying a large amount of data from one volume to another.
Anyway, I like this whole tabs thing. I think it's great. And it'll be interesting to discover actually you might know the answer to this, that if there's some third-party File Explorer program out there for Windows already, which emulates this, which does it already.
There's two.
Right,
I can think of at the top of I can't remember the name of one of them now, but Total Commander's another. I think Aidan over on Whatever Works, if you've ever listened to that podcast, I think he uses one of them instead of File Explorer.
Right.
But I can't remember what. There was another one that I used for a while that has I used it for the trial period, but it was just too expensive to warrant purchasing. But it was fantastic. Right. It did everything. It was robust and it was sensible. And whenever I moved back to Windows File Explorer, it was like, oh, come on, where are the features? But I can't remember what that was called. It had an illogical name that you're not going to attribute to being a File Explorer. It was like called Bob's Blunders Stuff or something like that. I think it began with an S. Simplistic Wheeze or something. I don't know.
Right. It's an interesting question to throw out there, though, for our dear listeners. Let us know in the MeWe group if you've got a File Explorer replacement that is much better than Windows one and already has tabs.
And bonus points for free.
Yes.
Because expensive ones are not nice for cheapos like us. And for our listeners, because we want to get them the best deal possible. And we'll come back to that later in the show. So, how do you install smart widgets on the Samsung there, Ted?
You go to, you use a device that's got One UI 4.1 on it, which at the moment is only the S22 range, I do believe. Although it might be available for the Tab S8. Oh no, you've got an S7, haven't you?
Yes.
So it might be on the S8 as well. I don't know. But this doesn't work on UI 4, One UI 4. So don't try it. But yeah, this is the Apple copy of smart widgets, the scrolling widgets, the stacking widgets as they're called, and Samsung have just copied it, and it looks from this report that we're linking to as though it works in pretty much the same way, and you can stack your widgets and stick it in there. I think you have to install it via the I think it comes with the system actually. Yeah, I think it does, as long as you've got 4.1, but where 4.1 is going back to, we don't know. It's not very clear. We think probably S21, S20, but we're not sure about S10. But it'll take time. But yeah, I really like those. I played with those stacking widgets on my iPhone when it first came out, and it was great. I was waiting for Android to do it, and now that Samsung have done it, no doubt Google will do it, and it will come along, and as usual with Google, they'll fix it into the core Android OS, probably in about another 9 months' time.
9 months, okay. Perfect incubation period.
They're really useful though.
No.
Have you ever used them? Because they're really good. They're ever so good. They're great fun. You can put what you like in it pretty much, and swipe between all your stuff in your widgets. You don't have to have. You can live with one home screen and just have one widget doing all your widget stuff. And I think it's a nice idea.
Okay, one widget doing all your widget stuff. Yeah. All right. I suppose that's the evolution of the widget, which is a bit like the evolution of the home screen, that you were able to add widgets to it to be able to see stuff. Now we're getting the evolution of the widget, so you'll be able to see stuff within the widget on the home screen. Yeah, stacking.
Yeah. It's good. I've got two on my iPhone, which I occasionally look at. One is the weather and one is the calendar. And whenever you want to see one or the other, you just swipe it down, and it flicks between the two. I think it's a great idea. And as usual, Apple come up with a great idea, and eventually everyone gets on board and copies it, which is great.
Right, okay. Yeah, that does sound pretty good. Nice one from Samsung to be able to do something like that. And hopefully Google will get their fingers out and, I don't know, tap on the keyboard for a while, and in 9 months we'll have a similar thing.
I bet a third party's already done it. I've not explored that. I bet there's somebody in the Play Store has already stuck one in there.
Yeah, probably. Okay, well, so our next topic is not for sensitive ears, okay? And ladies in the deep south, get your fans out, because oh my lord, we're going to be talking about some fanciful things here. So the UK is going to introduce a cyber flashing law that makes unsolicited. How do we go about this, Ted?
Just say it.
Okay. All right. Okay. Dick pics a crime. That's interesting, is it not? Yes, I have. Yes. Some people are probably turned off now, going, "Oh, I can't believe the disgusting, filthy thing we heard on Tech Addicts this week." But it's an important thing. It's a strange idea. So the UK is expected to bring in certain new measures. I think it's actually today to criminalise cyber flashing. And by that, I'm really thinking that this means unwanted pictures of genitalia being sent to people, as opposed to wanted ones.
Yes.
Yeah. The new law is going to crack down on people who send them and send unwanted sexually explicit images online. Campaigners are worried that it might still be difficult to prosecute cyber flashing cases, which I imagine it probably is. You can't sort of fingerprint them or whatever. But yeah, it makes you think that, I'd hate to be the person in the British government that has to go and try and sit down and go, right, how do we stop this? How do we stamp this out? How do we enforce this? Because there's all kinds of things that, they've probably tried in the past or discussed in the past. And do they have like a dick database that they'll be able to marry up? Can they? You see in CSI, they scan through the list of mugshots until they find something that's similar. Do they have that for men's areas? And is it just men's areas? Are you going to get a picture of a lady's area and be able to match that up with someone else or some other one that has been notoriously flashing in different areas? Is it going to be a bit like Jack the Ripper, where they're going to have various points around London that a flasher had sent these various images to people, and they've never been able to catch him, but they've noticed that there's a small mole at the side, and they've eventually got a detective to to work this out, that it could only be this one person who lives at 25 Acacia Road.
I was trying really hard not to laugh at this, because it's not funny, really. For people that this is affecting, it must be very serious, and I can't imagine it's just dick pics. This cyber flashing law must also include ladies revealing parts of their anatomy as well and doing the same thing. I'm not sure which is worse or which is more prevalent.
You were about to say it, weren't you?
Yes. Which is worse and which is more prevalent is the term. But I guess this is also the kind of opposite of the upskirting law that came in as well, which is, they a few years ago now, or 2 or 3 years ago, they made that illegal for people to go and take photos of people, female or male, with skirts on, and then put them on the internet. So I guess it's the same as that. But I can't believe that this is just about dick pics. It must be about whoever's doing this with any parts of whatever body. Even a dog's genitalia.
Oh, right, okay. I got upskirted once.
Did you? Did you have a kilt on?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I did have a kilt on.
Yeah.
And thankfully I had a pair of boxer shorts underneath it, because I knew it was going to happen. One of my friends just has to be so funny that they have to do that. And I figured I'd save face by wearing, because I do have a kilt because of my family Scottish heritage. That's the one. So it is a very scary idea that this can happen. I remember my wife once being in a video library back in, I don't know, 2002 or 3, and she had her Bluetooth on, and she looked at her phone and discovered that there was, in fact, a picture of a gentleman's wobbly bits in her folder. She'd received it and had a notification to say that this has been received.
Oh, by Bluetooth, right.
Yeah. And it was fairly early days of Bluetooth, and she was horrified, absolutely horrified. But, at the age group of her, of us at the time, it was more funny than horrifying. And I guess that's probably your first experience of this, so it does go down that route of being a funnier thing. But you're quite right, there are serious aspects to this as well, where someone's being bombarded with it, and it's really difficult to manage. Also, it works the other way as well with the likes of revenge porn and all that sort of thing. So it gets harder and harder as it goes along. No pun intended there. The having to deal with it is going to be a really difficult thing to do, and I'd love to. I'm interested to see, purely just to see how this pans out, how they do this, how they enforce it. And is it just a case of, well, it's happened so you can report it, and then we find out where it came from? Or is there a way of actually obliterating it forever?
That's the problem, I think. It's like a lot of these laws. It's a bit like, people using their mobile phone while they're driving. And it's so unpoliceable that the only time that this takes effect is when someone has a crash. And then afterwards, they can then look at the records and prove or not prove if they're on their phone. Like they would check the tax disc and the tread on the tyres. That's one thing they'll check. But actually, if you don't have a prang, the chances of you being caught with that law about mobile phoning when driving are very, very slim.
Yes, quite right. It's more of sort of a reactive law as opposed to an investigative law. No, a protective law.
Proactive.
Aye, that'll be the one. So initially, whenever I saw this, I just thought that in our world going forward, there is also the opportunity for the likes of, say, Caitlyn Jenner, to have done it in the past and then dispose of the evidence at some point in the future, and then not be held to account for having done it.
Oh, what's that? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
You're okay. No, that's just you could transition over, and then the evidence be lost.
Yeah.
So they could never catch you.
Yeah. Well, a related issue really was that what is the social media thing where your photo disappears after 30 seconds or something after it's been seen? Is that Snapchat?
Oh, true.
Is it Snapchat?
Yeah, but I think it turned out that they were still kept somewhere. Yeah, Snapchat did that for a while, and
because
I don't know.
If that was still a thing, then that would be a way around it for these flashes, I suppose. You could do that and then obliterate the trace. But if that's changed, then it's changed.
Really, you can still screenshot it, although you've got to be on the ball enough to have, no pun intended, on the ball to be able to take a snapshot whenever it comes in. Yeah. But it's a strange one. It really is. It's quite a bizarre one going forward, but absolutely necessary to help those who have been exposed to such atrocities out there.
For those that have been offended by it, certainly. However, if Anna de Armas wants to send me some, that's fine.
Dick pics. Okay. No, that would be a revelation, I suppose.
I will not make light of this. It's
very
serious.
No, but we're trying to help people sort of get around this and things like that. We've got to. There's too much heaviness in the world at the moment, and people aren't coming here to expect a serious conversation about about people doing this kind of thing. Anyway. All right, Chromebook news, Chrome OS news. Ted, what's happening in the world of Chrome OS these days?
The first one is the stylus, the USI, the Chromebook USI stylus thingy, has raised the stakes with version 2 being released, and pretty much the Universal Stylus Initiative, which is USI, is this standard for particularly Chromebooks using styluses. They're trying to kind of universalize all that, and the thing that's changed in version 2 very quickly is a wireless charging support. So that wasn't there before. You don't need a battery in your pen. You don't need you need a rechargeable battery, but no more AAAs or USB-C or micro USB ports to charge your pen. You can do it wirelessly with this new software. And apparently HP are already on board with this. And they're already getting stuff out there that you can wirelessly recharge your pen. I bought a pen just last week or the week before for this Microsoft Duo, which was on the cheap, and that's got a USB-C port in it. And it would be quite nice if that port wasn't there, but so every month or so you've got to charge it up. But this would mean you could do it wirelessly, and no doubt down the road somewhere there'll be somebody making this chargeable via their device. So Samsung will be able to plonk it on the back of their phone, and then it charges from the phone's battery and all that sort of thing, magnetically attached and blah blah blah. That was all.
All right. Well, it's a bit kind of like what Samsung have built into theirs, wireless charging.
Have they? I didn't know that. So they've got wireless charging in their S Pens, have they?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, this is the S Pens though are not USI. That's not the universal standard one. So I guess the news here is that even if other people are doing it, it's their own systems, not the USI.
Okie dokie. Well, that sounds like a good initiative, and long may it continue. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never had the need for one yet, but I don't even think that my actual Chromebook is compatible with them. I remember reading that early on.
That could be true.
Yeah, but I had the S7 Plus, so I didn't factor it in because I didn't need it.
You got an S Pen anyway. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The next thing is the Chrome OS diagnosis, which I knew nothing about. And I didn't know was there, but if you use your Chromebook and you go to the search field and you type in diagnostics, you can then click on the diagnostics thingy, and you can see loads of buried information about your Chromebook, and it was quite good fun looking through it. It tells you about the build of your device and the OS you're on. It gives you battery data, including that kind of estimated battery life, the health of the battery. I found out that my Pixelbook was 88% battery. How many times it's been charged. It's all good kind of nerdy data. The CPU data is there as well. It tells you about the current usage, like you would see in Windows, for example, in the Task Manager, and you can watch what's going on and troubleshoot if you see something going up the pole. Gives you a nice little summary of your memory on the Chromebook as well, and also your connectivity stuff. And yeah, I think the point here is that it allows people to troubleshoot. If there's something wrong, you can go into the diagnostics and see. And I didn't know this was here. Did you?
No, I didn't, but I ran through all the bits and pieces this morning just to see, because it allows you to run tests to see whether you're good or not, and you get a good, passed, well done.
Yeah.
You can run the test on the battery, and it says you've passed, you've got a battery and a CPU, and it does the same with the memory too. I did notice that it said it was going to take 30 minutes for the memory to complete, but it actually completed in about 6, which was okay. I wasn't expecting it to be quite so quick, but maybe it.
I think
cool.
I think Chrome OS is worse than Windows at estimating times of using the memory. I found this with copying stuff from cards onto the internal memory. Is that at one point it said it was going to take 1 million years or something. It was just something. It was like literally a figure like that. It was something ridiculous, and it was just like off the wall. You can also download the test results. I don't know if you did that, but you get a TXT file, and it just gives you. It's the same as Windows, really. It's all the stuff you can do with diagnostics with Windows.
Yeah, I didn't actually do the connectivity side of things here. It says running on local network, name resolution, internet connectivity. Go or to set up or update a connection, go to settings. Right, okay. Yeah, I'll play with that side of things later on and see what happens.
It's not particularly in depth, but it's a nice little tool. Particularly if something's gone wrong, you can see what maybe you can see what's going on with it. I'm not sure what that link there is about. You're trying to access. Did you put that in?
No,
I don't know what's happened there, but ignore that. My last Chrome OS news bit is just a reminder, really, about Read Aloud. I got a feeling that we mentioned this before on the show, and it's an extension which allows you to just read stuff aloud, and it's great. So just a reminder, really, go to the web store and pick it up, and you can just get it to read your stuff out. If you highlight a bunch of text, then it will read just that text, but if you just send it to work on an open web page, it will just try and read everything. So you want to highlight it, really, and it's great. It's a good little reader. You can change the voice, use the Google voice if you want to, use a different one, blah 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 blah. And yeah, if you want your news read to you, use the Chrome extension Read Aloud.
How do you get it to do the highlighted section?
You just you highlight the section, and then you click on the little trumpet thingy, and then it just starts reading it. And I just did it then. So if it's not working for you, I don't know why it's not. But
no, I tried this earlier as well on my Chromebook, and whenever I hit, I've highlighted. If you highlight a bunch of text,
have you got it blocked?
I hit the trumpet.
Have you got a U block thing going on?
Ooh, maybe I do.
Yeah, you might need to free up the extension to work properly.
Ooh. We'll try this now live on air and see if I'm happy.
Okay.
No, I've turned uBlock off, and it's still just reading from the very start of the document, despite me selecting a sentence. But I'll tinker with it and play with it. Obviously, it's something to do with my finger.
It's definitely working with me. Okay. And hang on a minute. Let me just double check what I've claimed there. Oh no, it's not. You're right. It started reading from the beginning of the document. So go to a web page and do it from a web page. And let me open a web page. I'll click on a link in our show notes and go to a web page. Highlight it in the web page, and there.
Yes.
And then it's I think it's to do with Google Docs, which is what we're using for our show notes. So,
grand. Okay, so it doesn't work in Google Docs. You can't get it to read back certain areas of a document.
It would appear not. So, bad Google. I didn't realise that. Sorry.
No, at least we've got that cleared up, and I'm not going to start throwing my Chromebook at a wall anytime soon, which was possible earlier on. Right, okay, the harkback section, and I've got a quick one because it struck me the other day, and I just thought, I suppose that's worth talking about. And it's to do with VHS, which is the home video systems that we used to use back in, I suppose, the early 80s to mid-90s. I'm going to say the mid-90s, I think, when DVD sort of started parading its superiority over the likes of VHS. But VHS went through a number of iterations. Obviously, Betamax had a war with VHS, and all thanks to pornography, VHS won. Not because VHS was the better option. It was just cheaper to produce things on, so pornography was able to freely be distributed on VHS at a cheaper price.
Is that a fact?
It's one of the many things. It's
Really?
a bit like the First World War, but that was one of the big things that the big blows. Betamax wouldn't let porn be produced on theirs, and also it was a wee bit more expensive.
Okay.
There was also something about runtime. So, Betamax being smaller tapes, they could only do a certain amount of runtime, but they figured that would sort of evolve had the Betamax tape become the better one. But or be the the survivor of the war. The Betamax was a better picture quality all in, but VHS won out in the end.
Right.
Which was great news for Sony, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So VHS, I remember getting my first VHS when my parents first bought a VCR, and we walked into the living room and went, "Ooh, have we got a video?" And there it was under the TV. And my dad gave me a 60-minute videotape, gave my brother a 120-minute videotape, and then he and Mum had a 128-minute videotape to play with. So mine was completely useless for recording films, given that I was the one who was really into movies, whereas my brother, who was very much into sitcoms like The Golden Girls and Roseanne, was able to record 3 or 4 of those episodes, and I could only record 3/4 of a movie, which was a bit of a pain.
How
in the
long was
ass.
yours? 60?
60,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Why they were invented, nobody knows. But they were. I think it was probably one that was given away free with it, so you could record songs of praise or something on a Sunday if you were going to miss it, or the Queen's speech on Christmas Day. But it got me thinking that what we did to get around this, and the actual VHS itself, because VHS did have the option to do long play, where you could get maybe a 180 tape that would record around about 180 minutes, give or take, depending. Actually, it depended on region as well. PAL and NTSC, you got different recording times. I can't remember how we worked it out, but there was a way you could work it out that I think actually in the West, over in America, you got less time on your tape because of the way NTSC worked. A bit like bits and bytes, you get 24 frames per second, depending on 0. Can't remember just off the top of my head, but yeah. And NTSC, not the same colour, was the inferior of the two. I'll happily say that. PAL and CCAM was the better of the two. So anyway, whenever you put it into your VCR, depending on the VCR that you bought, you might be able to actually condense it down and use a slower method for the tape to be spooled through the actual tape spools to record more on a video cassette. There's a whole breakdown on Wikipedia which got me fascinated to see. The 180 that I was talking about had 369 meters of tape in it. And this is this flammable tape as well. I remember unraveling an audio cassette with a friend of mine, and all around my hallway, and turned it into a giant web, and a Type Brothers door closed as well. And then we knocked on his door and crawled away under this tape. He went and opened the door, and he couldn't open the door, and he eventually yanked it, and the tape all twisted and snapped and collapsed. He was like, "What the hell?" But anyway, there was a massive amount of tape inside those. Probably not the best for the environment, mind you. But in short play, they would generally work out to be 184 minutes, 3 hours and 4 minutes. And then using some of the sophisticated things actually that's the NTSC stuff, the stuff that I'm not talking about. PAL region, there we go, 180 minutes was 263 minutes, which is 4 hours and 23 minutes. That was the runtime that you could record. But using the long play option, you could get 526 minutes, which is 8 hours and 46 minutes, but it would be at a degraded picture quality, much like we see when you take a video on a phone and you want to save some space. You turn it down to some crap resolution like 720p that only Ted will be happy with. So I just imagine that back in the day, Ted, you were probably going, "Nope, long play is best. I'm going to record everything in long play, even if it's only half an hour. I'm quite happy. I'll still have another 8 hours and 15 minutes to record more songs of praise if I need it."
Certainly not songs of praise. But I'd completely forgotten until this minute about LP and SP, and yeah, you're quite right. I only used LP if I had to. So if I had a tape that was not going to do the job, I would switch it to LP. But even I have much younger eyes than, of course. Even I could see the difference. It was a huge difference. Long play was crap. and short play was bad enough. But was there I don't remember it going the other way, like extra short play, did it?
No, it was just a standard run.
Yeah. So yeah, I completely remember these lengths of tapes, and I can remember trying to get the longest one I possibly could. And I think 180s, Scotch. I remember Scotch and JVC 180s we used to get and record our stuff on them. Yeah, but in answer to your question, long play. I don't remember more than 180. Oh, yes, I do. I remember 240. 240 is not in that list. Why is 240
It
not
is, yeah. It's at the very bottom, but it's divided into two. There's the common tape lengths, and then there's the E series, which was into the PAL market, which is the one we more traditionally had. But my first video cassette that my dad gave me was actually a T60, which was actually 89 minutes in length under SP. Whereas if it had been the PAL marketed E60 version, it would have lasted 63 minutes.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm looking at the chart now. I hadn't seen the chart till now. But yeah, 240. That was the ones we used to get. But there was a deterioration, and they got bad press because they said the tape was thinner, and only use a 240 if you really have to. And the shorter they are, the better the quality of the tape. Now that might be absolute rubbish. I don't know.
I think it is.
Right. Okay. But
I had loads of 240s. I still have some.
okay. Do you think?
And I used them frequently.
Do you think, like audio cassettes, the VHS will come back, or is it just never going to see the light of day again?
Well, I think they're still actually used in the likes of security systems and things, because tape backup was such a big thing. Computers used it too. You can still buy tape backups for your computer today as a cheaper alternative to your hard drives. You could go and get yourself a tape backup system and put it all there, and it's actually a lot more secure, unless you were to have some sort of, they can use a certain special type of magnet. I used to work in a video library, and I remember we had that magnet you would rub across the video cassette to blanket. That's right.
Oh, wow.
And we also had this other little winder thing that you would stick into the back of the video whenever people didn't rewind it. And you'd have to stand there and rewind it manually. Oh, it was such a pain. It was so much cheaper than actually buying a VCR. And you stick it in yourself and use the electricity to wind it rather than just use my 16-year-old fingers to do it. Yeah.
Oh, they're still on sale. Blank tapes in Amazon. Oh, BASF. That was one. The ones that the E180s, BASF. I've forgotten that. I had no idea you could still buy blank ones. Surely people domestically in their houses are not still using VHS.
I don't know. I can see a VCR right now. There's one at the bottom of my crap corner that I need to clear out, but I've never gotten rid of it because I still do have things on VHS. I have a number of films starring Alan Gilday on VHS. I have 2 starring me on VHS that I don't want to get rid of, and they've never been released digitally, I don't believe. So, that's my only memory of them or copy of them.
I can't see it. I can't see it coming back. I cannot. I get the audio cassette thing for nostalgia and all the rest of it, but I can't see households buying into this system again.
I actually used to know what the last film released on VHS was, but I can't remember off the top of my head. I know that was it Serenity was the first one that was released on Blu-ray and Ultra HD, or no, HD DVD, after DVD started to take a step in the next direction. But I did know what it was, and it was a significant enough title that I think they decided we've got to put this out to try and maximize. It wasn't like Air Force One or something like that, but it was after that. Even though it was a big title that they would think, yeah, there's going to be still people who hire out the video because they haven't progressed over to DVD yet.
Wow.
Yeah, it was worth a while.
Wow. I'm just looking at your chart again at the various things available.
One of the things I wanted to say was, using Sky, I had a couple of those 240s that would record 248 minutes. and Sky would have the movie channel, and you go and record a bunch of movies off it. And you'd maybe build up a compilation where you'd maybe have 3 films on one video cassette.
Yep.
And I did this all the time, and I tried to sort of, you maybe record 3 of them because you were going to watch them at some other stage, or it's something that you wanted to keep. Say, for example, I'm a big Bruce Campbell fan. A lot of Bruce Campbell movies would appear on Sky way down the ratings, or at 2 o'clock in the morning or something, and I'd grab a copy of it and have it on that video cassette. And then eventually you'd buy it, maybe on DVD or on VHS, and then you go, I don't need that copy of it, but it's right in the middle of the video with a copy of such and such beforehand and something else afterwards. So I've got to find a film that is... look at the back of the video box. Okay, that film was 93 minutes. I need to get a 93-minute film. So you'd be going through the listings to try and find something that you could replace that one with. Yeah. So, I took it to the extra mile, as I like to do. But yeah,
and
video cassettes.
You could get really nerdy as well by splicing, and that on the front lifty up panel, there's a little button on the side, and you pressed it in, and you could lift the flap up the top. And then you could get the tape out and you could put it in a splicing thingy. And if you really knew what you were doing with the right gear, you could take out the bit that you didn't want and join the other 2 together. Did you ever do any of that?
No, I didn't. I never thought of it. A bit like a reel-to-reel type audio editing. Yeah,
I think you needed to have some investment in gear, I used to see other people doing that.
Wow, okay, flip. And it never occurred to me that you could do that with a video cassette as well. But it makes perfect sense because it's just tape.
Yeah. Digitizing has changed so much, hasn't it? Your ones of Alan Gill Day under your feet, you could easily have those on digital, but you want the nostalgia of having the tape, don't you?
No, I think I'd planned to do it. That's why I have the VCR sitting over there, and the video cassettes are in the shed. It's just linking those 2 together and actually putting the time together to go, I'll get those, I'll put them on this, and I'll bring them into the computer now. Because that takes time.
Yes.
And to be honest, they're not that great. Alan's superb in them, of course, absolutely.
Of course.
And he's worth listening to in the projector room. But, I remember him playing... Oh, no, I'm not going to go into that, no. Yeah.
You'll be sued.
I will do, yes. All right, moving into the bargain basement. We're going to start off with the Bose. The 752-195-0100. This is the SoundLink Color 2. It's down in price from £130 to £90. This is a portable Bluetooth speaker. Ted's ears prick up. It's a wireless speaker with a microphone built into it as well. And it's available in an array of colours, but the black one is the only one that's down to £90. And it looks like a pretty cool little Bose speaker, and we know that Bose is going to deliver some quality. It's stinky. It's pretty petite. And it's waterproof as well, or water resistant to certain amounts, and it can be quick paired with NFC as well, and uses a lithium-ion battery for 8 hours of playtime. It's got a built-in microphone and responds well to Siri and Google Assistant. What do you think of that?
I'm being offered £18 for 5 months on that. The only thing that I don't like about it is that it's got a micro USB charging, which is a bit of a shame. They're coming along with USB-C, but obviously this one's too old in that process, which is probably why it's cheap. But yeah, you can't argue with the Bose sound, can you? It looks great.
No, I hadn't realised. I thought it was USB-C. There was something that made me think, that's worth it.
Yeah. But I mean, if you don't mind USB-C, I'm sure it's brilliant. Pretty nice.
Yeah. Micro still works for little peripherals like that.
I've got a little adapter. I've got a micro USB to USB-C adapter somewhere, which does the trick.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, next up is a HyperX Solo Cast, which is a USB condenser gaming microphone. And I've heard some things about these HyperX things, but I've never actually had one. This has been reduced. It's like almost 50% off to 33 quid. And if you look at some of the pictures of it, it looks really quite good quality. I don't know if you've ever dabbled with this make at all, but the thing looks like it's very flexible. It has got USB-C charging, or connection rather, and it's got a little stand, but you can also connect it to a microphone stand in the usual way. And right in the middle of the top, it's got a mute button, which is really, really nicely placed and handy. And I really quite fancy the look of this. I wish I needed yet another microphone, but I don't. But if you were set up for, I don't know, Skyping or Zooming or something, that looks like it'd be really quite good quality.
And streaming, I think that's the main focus of this. Is actually it's compatible with the PS4, Discord, and Streamlabs OBS and OBS Studio. So it's a good option if you're into streaming.
HyperX.
Dirt cheap.
HyperX. It looks, in actual fact, it looks a bit like a Razer. Maybe there's some hookup. Anyway, yeah.
I like this actually. I really do. Okay, fair enough. Next up is the Samsung the Samsung 980 1TB PCI 3.0 NVMe M.2 internal SSD. There you go. Which appears to be sold out.
Oh, yes. It certainly does.
It was there not so long ago for £93.99 for a 1TB one, but they're not actually offering me the option to purchase now. An hour later, no, 2 hours later, because it's a 2-hour podcast. I suppose that's one of the problems with having a really long podcast is these deals go out of date. Yeah.
The 500 gigabyte one is still there for 53 quid for anyone that might be interested. 53.98. Is that's obviously not as much of a bargain.
No, it's all right. You would install Windows on that drive really and use it that way. But for maybe a gaming drive or an all kinds of crap drive or media drive or something like that, this looks quite nice. I'm still waiting for the 1TB to drop down to that kind of £120 area where it should be. It really should be. I did actually buy an SSD NVMe last week. Or 2 weeks ago, it was at £120. It was the Western Digital option, 2 terabytes through their website at £120. But it hasn't arrived yet, and they've sent me an email to say that they're out of stock, and they will send me a new one whenever they arrive. They're going to hold on to my money until such time as they do.
The cads.
Lovely. They should have notified us straight away that they were out of stock and not let us just buy it, which is annoying. Ted, tell us what JBL have.
JBL has something which you don't see very much of, at least I don't anyway, which is a DAB and FM radio. So it's got an aerial in the traditional way, but it's also a Bluetooth speaker, and it looks like a radio. It looks like it does all three jobs really nicely. It's 10 quid off. It's $79.99. It's got 12 hours playback, and it just does all those jobs together. And you just don't seem to often see one that's got all that together. It's got a nice LCD display on the front as well. So it's a kind of world radio, internet radio, come DAB thingy, come everything, and it looks really, really nice. And it's got how much? 12 hours of playback, IPX7 waterproofing, so it's not bad at all. And JBL stuff, in my experience, is pretty good. It's got a USB-C charging as well, which is even better. Looks nice. I fancy one of these. Do you?
I do, yeah. It's in black, but there is also the white version as well, which is the same price.
Very, very nice.
Nice. Yeah, good call, good call. And next up is the tablet that we have mentioned a number of times during the show, is the Samsung Galaxy Tab S7 Plus. This is down in price from £800 to £599.25 through Amazon, Samsung store on Amazon. That is a tremendous deal. It's only the 128 version, so don't get too excited, but I still think that's 25% off. That's almost 200 quid of a saving on one behemoth of a tablet. Also, Samsung have have said that they're going to be supporting their devices for 5 years. So that's a good option. This is the one that has the Qualcomm Snapdragon inside of the 865 Plus. And a rather nice 12.4-inch screen that I sometimes feel is a wee bit too large for on the go, but everybody's different.
Yeah, or the 256 for 50 quid more by the looks of it. So yeah, 651.75. They're showing me here anyway. So that's 25% off as well, and that's got 256 and Wi-Fi. Did the first one have Wi-Fi as well? I mean,
yeah, that's how it connects to the
internet. Did it have 4G, the first one?
No, I don't think it did.
Okay. No. So we're talking Wi-Fi only versions here, but even so, yeah, they're really good bargains, aren't they?
Yeah, and I'd hardly recommend that to anyone who's looking to just upgrade to something from an older, cheaper tablet.
Like me.
Yes.
My Nokia cheapest chips T20.
Well, that's still a very good value for money piece of hardware there that I don't think it's going to take. It's not going to be ridiculed by anyone.
No.
It's great tablet.
Yes, indeed. Right, last up is the one that I think I mentioned 2 weeks ago, but it's still there, it seems. It's the the Sony Xperia 5 Mark III with a free pair of 910N noise-cancelling headphones from Sony, £100 off, so it's $797.99. So it's not cheap, but if you're going to, you'd have to be buying one anyway, probably. But you get £100 off of the price and the free headphones, and I'm being offered £66.50 times 12 months. Which you don't see on everything on Amazon. Even 5 months is the typical. But if you really wanted a nice new Sony phone, that 12-month option is really cool, I think. And you get a pair of free headphones, which, as I said last time, we reckon you could probably flog for about 100 quid if you wanted to. So you could save another 100 quid. Bargain.
Yeah, that would be 200 quid off the price.
Indeed.
Not bad. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Well, I'm just looking at the time and I've got to mosey on, so I'm going to bring the show to a close. You can get in touch with us if you like by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.uk, and of course we're on Twitter as well at techaddictsuk. You can find me on Twitter too, and that's at Gareth Miles, GarethMyles, and then I've got my .com as well, which is GarethMiles.com, surprisingly. Ted, do you have a GarethMiles.com?
I don't have a Gareth Miles one, but I have a Ted Salmon one, TedSalmon.com.
Wow.
Where you'll get links to everything that I do out from there. TedSalmon.com, all the audio podcasts and all the MeWe groups, links to everywhere. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you can do that at paypal.me/Ted Salmon, and I will give you a big kiss.
Right. Is that a good sales pitch? Yeah. All right. Well, we'll let you go, and I'll get on here because I gotta. Right. Take care, and we'll speak to you all next week. Take care now.
Bye.